Good day to you all. My name is Terence Baker. We're here again on The Upgrade, the monthly, we try, podcast from CoStar News Hotels on Europe, Middle East and Africa hotel scene. It's my great pleasure today to introduce my guest, Marloes Knippenberg, the CEO of Kerten Hospitality. How are you, Marloes?
Very well. Thank you very much. And thank you for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure. I first met Marloes, I think, on a patio of what was then the Viceroy Yas Island Hotel in
Yes.
Abu Dhabi.
Very
Abu
good
Dhabi?
memory.
Yeah.
Yes, it was Abu Dhabi.
With you and Anthony Dorset from when you first started Cloud 7 Hotels. It seems like
Yes.
a long time ago.
Yes.
We'll get into some of that, but it's a real pleasure to have you on board here today. It's a real
Thank
pleasure.
you.
So first of all, Marloes, can you give me a history of Kerten and your role within it? I mean, it's a small question to start with, but give us a picture of Kerten.
So Kerten Hospitality really started, probably 11, 12 years ago now. To make a difference in the hospitality scene. And I think what at the time we launched indeed with Cloud 7 Hotels, and it was really to bring a different hospitality into the world. And when you look at where hospitality started, and I started with one of the big chains. It was so much about brand standards. And I think when we started, we could see that owners wanted something different. Owners wanted something new. But even from a guest perspective, people wanted experiences. And I'd say we worked really hard, but we were really at the right time, at the right space. Because even when you look, right, a lot of the big operating companies started soft brands and started really pushing those soft brands. When we started, we were the first ones to talk about mixed use. And in real estate, they spoke about mixed use for a long time. In hospitality, that wasn't something that was there. And that's really how we started. We put together a small team, but we really invested in people since the beginning. So we always had, and you mentioned Anthony Doucet, he's still there. He's our chief experience officer. Anthony has Kerten in his DNA, but I can go through person by person. We have every function in-house, and we've very much focused for the last couple of years on building infrastructure, finance, IT, revenue management, distribution, like everything that is kind of boring, but you need to be able to scale for us to really be able to focus on the front of house, on the guest experience, on really delivering something that goes beyond the walls of the building. And you heard me say this from the beginning. This is why I was actually excited to do this, because you were there from the beginning when we started talking. And we haven't changed our vision and our mission and our values since that first meeting we had. We've just really been working hard to see how we can bring this to life with different people. And that's where we are today.
A couple of points come immediately to my mind. Firstly, I remember you saying to me with Cloud 7 that you were searching for a guest who's looking way beyond the normal parameters of tourism and travel. And I think that's very much true of what you're still doing. Second point is that every conference we go to now starts with a solid morning of branded resi or mixed use. I mean, we know why shareholders like it. We know why owners like it. It comes up with upfront capital before the guest arrives. But you're on that immediately. You saw that perhaps as a way the industry was going. Your hotel chains are. You have a hotel in Rome, I know, but predominantly you've been moving your portfolio up in the Middle East. You have some in Georgia, which arguably is in that region. There's a bit, is it Europe or Caucasus? But the Middle East, of course, and our long-term view is that it's going to carry on. It's who would have thought 30, 40 years ago that 3 or 4 of the big international hub airports would be in that region, but they are. It's going to come back. But give me a flavour how you're looking at your properties now in the Middle East and how you're running through this. As is everyone else, how are you running through this period of yet more indecision in the region?
it's interesting, right? If you look at periods that were tougher for our industry, it goes kind of down and up. When you look at this region specifically, the reason we came into this region wasn't because of the big bucket of gold, but it was because there is such a drive in the Middle East. There is such a great opportunity when it comes to developing product for the newer generation. It is the part of the world where, over 65% is under 35 years old. When it comes to building licenses, it is much more lean and flexible in the sense that when you talk about mixed use, which in our Kerten Hospitality world was always you combine long stays and short stays because that's how you build an ecosystem. That's how how you connect people together. Um, you have long stayers, as in the people that live there, with something that is transient. When you combine all of that together, you know this region brings all of those components. And you're right, with those big airports, all of that traffic coming in, having that the international possibilities, having that tourism. But it's not just that they're developing for tourism. When you look at, for example, Saudi Arabia, it's very much they're developing for their own people, their nationals, putting that on the map. And I think, like with anything, right? There is an opportunity in every difficult period. This part of the world has proven over and over, how resilient they are, and they bounce back. Um, I would say faster than many other areas. So in that sense, our teams are on the ground. We're picking up business everywhere. We are signing projects. So different, I guess, to the period of COVID where everybody was kind of frozen and waiting,
Yeah.
etc. This is not the same. And the way they're dealing with it here is so professional. And yes, everybody wants us over, but I think in hospitality per se, we have such a great responsibility to be there for whomever and wherever. Hospitality has never been into politics, right? It's we've always been the people to bring the vibe, to bring the moments, to bring the experience, to connect people together. And I think this, we have a great opportunity, but also a great responsibility to do
Yeah.
so.
It might be a good idea for hoteliers to become the people who make the decisions in politics, although there's always a danger of hoteliers becoming politicians and getting back to square one. We're probably more happy in our industry. We'll get onto some of your brands in a minute, Marloes, but give me an idea of how the residencies, the office for co-working, the experiential, how that's played into your thinking of your brands. Because as you said earlier, they've definitely been on the same track as quote unquote pure tourism and hotel stays. So give us a sense of how you look at that. Is it just financial? Is it a people thing? In the Middle East, perhaps some of that co-working and some of that branded resi might be a little bit mixed use, might be a little bit more, you get that in a maturer market, perhaps. Tell me how Kerten looks at that in the Middle East.
So, and this is, and you were alluding to that in the beginning. When we started, it was very much Middle East focused because of the opportunities, the way that the markets were developing, etc. Today, we have 2 projects open in Italy. We have 3 more in the pipeline, and we have quite a bit more coming. We've signed 2 projects in Morocco. We have a team on the ground in Morocco, and that's well on its way. France is opening up for us. We are strengthening the team in Europe, and I'm just saying this because when you look at how we build up our brands, because we've gone by guidelines and not standards, the way that we apply our brand is by a philosophy and methodology. Not it has to be urban or resort, it has to be on the beach, or it has to be in a mountain. And so this philosophy we apply to resi hotels, service departments. And so when you apply this to branded resi, for example, you build communities as part of the sales process. It's not just aesthetics that you sell. And that's the same in the hotel part. And there, what we do different than many other operating companies is we develop the story slash the concept with the owners and any other stakeholders from the beginning, which then really forms, the definition of the project. When we're doing that, we're really defining who's the target audience, what's their location. And by that, then we develop what they want and the product that we can build around that. Because we're quite lean and, we really push this local suppliers and local stakeholders, and not having to fly in your bread from Germany and your chandelier from the US, etc. All of a sudden we can create these small ecosystems from the moment that we sign their involvement into the properties, and then also comes the whole mixed use part. The idea of the combination where you see in more mature markets, people are saying branded resi, you need a 5-star super luxurious brand. You have, you increase the price per square meter significantly, and life goes on. Yes, that's correct. We can see the same, but we can see it on our lifestyle brands, right? You can increase the price by 25, 30 square meter from mid markets up to a luxury element. But what's always been important to us, and that's why we like that combination with short stays hotels, is somebody who wants to stay in a residence. How many of those people want to go to the common communal area? How many leave their apartment in their pajamas and go and sit there? But if there is a lobby where you have a transient audience and there's activity, you exchange your pajama trousers for a jeans, go down and see people, right? It's just this philosophy that all of a sudden, then brings the essence of mixed use. And this is where the whole branded resi, the mixed use piece, all of those components come together. And I think where a lot of people have been copying and people look at the aesthetics, not for everybody, the economics. So
Yeah.
the economics, I think, don't work for everybody, because a lot of people just simply look at putting the components together, building the aesthetic, but forget the human part. And actually, 50% of it is really how you build communities, how you bring the right people together, and how you then keep that alive. That's really what then increases the value of the real estate, the value of the project, etc. I think over the past 10 years, we've we've really perfected on how to scale it and how to build that. Because the one question that we keep getting is, it's great to do bespoke and it's great to do all of this and it's great to build these communities, but how do you scale that? And I think that's why we've put so much focus onto building infrastructure, and with that infrastructure, you can then really focus on that front of house piece.
I mean, it's a sort of a need to both scale and to future-proof that scale,
Yeah,
perhaps.
correct.
Let's talk about some of your brands. You got the House Hotel, you got Cloud 7, you have a new brand, Hosme. Is that how you pronounce it? Hosme. So these brands, dare I say, might not be household names to a lot of people in the industry. They're obviously growing with a particular guest base that you've nurtured. Tell me something about the House Hotel. I mean, Egypt, Georgia, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, Turkey. There's obviously a Middle Eastern trend there. Tell me about that, the House Hotel.
So the house, upper upscale, very much focused on architecture and design. We're growing the brand actually significantly, like you were saying. Zanzibar was our latest addition. 100 villas on the beach for sale. Um, 2 weeks mandatory rental pool. 2 weeks a year you can stay yourself, and then we'll manage it as a almost as a hotel property. Um, and I think with the focus on the house, we have a strong following because the name the house is quite inspirational, and it's great. We secured that name really early onwards. Um, but with with all of these projects, they either come with art integration, retail integration. They have quite a mature upper upscale kind of a footfall, and the people that have been following us for long, And you've seen it. Is when you come in, it's not impressive because of the marble. It's not impressive because of the grandness. It's impressive because it's unexpected. It's something that is really kind of e- edgy. And when you look at we have actually a number of projects coming up. If I speak about the project we haven't announced yet, that's coming up in Riyadh city center. Um, and that's 200 plus keys. When you look at the look and feel of it, it kind of reminds you a little bit European, um, but this kind of hominess, this kind of not extravaganza and not your kind of box standards, even with the amenities, with the services, etc. It just goes back again to the core of what humans want in a certain location.
I need to go to Zanzibar. My father grew up there in the
Ah,
in the 1940s. There's
so
a
let us arrange.
Yeah, I mean, there's a tale he always tells about when he started work as an accountant. He would have to row, or someone would row him over, or on a dhow or on a boat over to Pemba, where he was in charge of the clove growers for product, the apple spice. And he'd bring a big sack of coins because when he paid the cooperative, they would distribute the coins and the coins would be buried because there were
Oh,
no
really?
banks
Yeah.
back in the day, another lifetime ago. So I need to go to, long story, I need to get to Zanzibar one day. My father's 92 now, so I'm not sure he'll be able to come with me, but he'll like it if I go. So Cloud 7, another brand of yours, and probably the original brand, obviously probably very close to your heart, has a hotel in Rome now. And also, I believe have you or are you going to open at Lula in Saudi Arabia with that brand, aren't you? So tell me something about the brand and where it's going.
So Cloud 7 and Lula has opened since almost 3 years, 300 keys. And it's actually, we have the house there as well, Dirt and Tura, the house hotel, which won a number of awards. And we just got actually a Bib Gourmand for
I mean, it must have
Juntos, the
been one of the
restaurant.
original hotels there. It
So
must have been one of
yes,
the
correct.
original hotels there. Yes.
Correct. Yes, correct. So, Cloud 7, we started with the house originally, and then we could see there was a room for a product for a younger audience. Now we developed it at the time for millennials. It wasn't attractive apparently to millennials. It was a much more mature audience. But if I compare it, if I when I used to go into the lobbies of Citizen M, I always thought that was kind of a product for a young audience. It was always quite a mature corporate audience that was around. People that were looking for something different. That's how Cloud 7 started and kind of opened a group. We opened Cloud 7 in Rome, city center Rome, last year. Um, and even in business plan, we did not expect it would be as successful as it was. But again, there, because we developed, so the idea was we wanted art integration. We didn't want to replicate anything from the past. We wanted a modern interpretation, but not modern art, a modern interpretation of Roman art. We collaborated with the university, which really created from the beginning kind of a canvas, created kind of a true story that connected to the location and the locality. When you come in today, there is a almost an American elderly segment of tourists, while there is at the same time a younger Italian corporate audience, and they're staying together. And our smallest room is 11 square meters, but I've stated that because
My goodness.
I wanted to try it. It's amazing, and you can't say that about your own product, right? But it's just together with the interior designers and the architects, we've really used every single millimeter. And in a place like Rome, you cannot move the walls, right? By default, Rome city center, it is what it is. You can't, you know, you cannot touch anything. And even with that, we
No,
created
indeed.
something that's modern. We created something that, inspires people. Um, but, that's the same. Cloud 7 and Aqaba, just we celebrated our 5th anniversary in summer last year. And that product, I mean, developed as a 4-star. When you look at it, it really looks 5-star. Comp set 5-star, and we're outperforming that comp set of kind of the traditional brand since 5 years, month over month, occupancy rate, RevPAR. But and I always say it's not because we're brilliant, but really because you see that people are tending to look for projects that are bespoke, different, and there the brief was Mykonos meets Marrakesh at the Red Sea. So you create something that is bohemian and different, for a local audience. You create something that still has this touch of arabesque for an international audience, without going over the top. And we're at the sea, so you have this blue and white. Yet you have the colors, you have the shapes, and then you have the experiences. In Aqaba, for example, we went very light on F&B, because there is an amazing marina. There's a great curation of restaurants. And when you ask people, they think that we're running 30 restaurants because we've integrated all of that into the room products. In
Right.
Alula, we're running, full-fledged paddle. We've, our gym has actually a lot of memberships, even though it's a small place. It's become kind of the attraction plaster for the community, while at the same time, it has the outdoor cinemas, it has the outdoor yoga areas, it has the restaurants, but it also has 1,500 square meter of office space that we've converted into smaller offices. So you can have your room and office into the same development. Colera, which is actually well, it used to be just a winter destination. It's in the mountains of Bergamo. So if you fly into Milan, Bergamo, it's a 45-minute drive. And it's an amazing location. We're exactly attached to the ski lift. So when you're skiing off the piste, you're pretty much skiing into the lobby. And that project will be open all year long. And you can go walking and you have all of these activities going on, for the rest of the year. And I think that really shows you where Cloud 7 as a brand, it's kind of in that upper middle scale, was developed for destinations with footfall, that can have full service but can have limited service. The one that we announced, Casa Dora, in Morocco, it will almost have 400 keys. And again, there it's riyadhs for sale. It is branded riyadhs that are just simply in the inventory of the hotel property and the hotel property. And all of that will have experiences, not just a restaurant outside and, we tick the box and a pool, etc. But really,
Yes.
what we're working on is retail philosophy, F&B integration philosophy, experiences that, that we integrate in the design and the architecture from the beginning so that operationally we can execute them at the end.
Well, I'm hoping that the era of over-the-top hotels is way behind us all now. No need for marble and gold and glitz, and want real hotels for real people. And lastly, Hosme. I have to say I'm a bit unfamiliar with that brand. So it is aimed more at a budget traveler, is it not?
Affordable contemporary. That is the new word.
Affordable contemporary. Okay.
Contemporary. So it's and you're unfamiliar with it because we haven't really gone out so much with the brand yet. We are going all in, and quite big announcements actually coming up with the first 2 projects by summer. But we developed this brand because you're absolutely right. In the budget segment, you either have the box standard and boring, or you have the kind of very hipster, colorful party in the lobby kind of product, and there's very little in between. And so we've launched Hosme to play into a segment where it's affordable, but the word contemporary is really important here. So it looks stylish, it's very well positioned. Even when you're, for example, a younger corporate on a smaller budget, that has to be, a brand that when somebody says, "Shall I drop you off?" or "Let's have a meeting in your hotel," you happily say, "Yes, I'm staying at Cosme." But that's
Right.
in our portfolio will be the one brand that goes by brand standards. Um, the rooms are costed out. They will look and feel the same with a local touch of art in every single one. So you almost create a portfolio of assets. And I would say, like, you talk about art in all of the projects. Yes, we do, because, it's always been something that's been very dear to us. We've never developed a collection of art hotels per se, because then it becomes very themed. I always, and I think we as a team has always believed that, if you integrate it, it's a layer of depth, a layer of, story, is something that is an add-on to a different product. But I will tell you way more about Cosme as soon as we go out
Right. Well,
big
we
with
look
it,
forward
because
to that.
I would love to show you.
But contemporary requires some degree of, we used this word before, future proofing through capex or whatever. I mean, is that is that and more so, people are making sure that capex is in their exit plans and in a life of a product. How do you look at that?
I think with
Making sure that this
contemporary,
contemporary nature.
I think with contemporary, you have such a great opportunity, because you're much more. You can go less in FF&E. You can go less in OS&E. You can do much more as built-in. Plus, because we do the art integration and you can add color to it at any time, it's something that is almost timeless if you look at it. Something that is chic. There is things that are chic for one season, and sometimes they're over the top, and sometimes they're a little less of a statement. In this case, it's chic in its own segment. And when I talk about contemporary, it's more minimal, but minimalist with a sense of soul. And this minimalist with sense of soul allows us to actually convert spaces, use spaces for different scenes. But I think you see a lot of the traditional companies going into the big push for soft brands and big push for brand guidelines, and just let's take anything that is a hotel into the portfolio, and if it doesn't fit a brand standard, we put a soft brand. I think there is, on the flip side of that, a great opportunity where hotel developers, urban city centers, but even resorts are developing 150 keys up. They want something that is affordable to build, have high footfall, and in that high footfall segment, at a lower average rate, you can drive really high occupancies. And if you do that with a product that looks great but doesn't cost so much to build, all of a sudden you have a different proposition. And I think in that budget segment, as in affordable segment, it's been for a long time, you know, affordable needs to look like that, where adding the contemporary means that actually affordable is affordable, but it doesn't look that way.
Right. I mean, you hinted at partnerships, and I know right from the beginning that's been very much your ethos of how can we get the best partners, how can we expand a partnership base. I believe that you, as well as giving advisory, you have an advisory wing of your company. I mean, you manage, you franchise, and you sometimes turn those franchises into manchises. Tell me something about how you look for partners, how important that is for your company in your growth.
So we have a couple of different partnership pockets at the moment. So when you look at some of the relations that we've built, and partners that we've built, we've become their hospitality arm, different than probably other operating companies. We've really become not their advisors, not their consultants, but really their hospitality arm, to work with them on flows, master plans, and development of entire communities, because if all of those components are planned well together, it helps everybody involved, right? So we play two different roles. And then, after that process finishes, we become the operator on some of the assets with our brands. Um, the other part of partnerships that we've been developing over the last couple of years is partnerships on property. So, for example, in Cloud 7 Rome, we developed a partnership with Max& Co. Max& Co. did a full rehaul on their brand. They launched that, or relaunched that in Rome. They did a full Rome takeover. And in the collaboration with our Cloud 7 in Rome, Cloud 7 was their base. Communications was done together. They then launched their line of perfumes, which were put in the rooms. And there's a third and a fourth phase of that partnership coming, because we really look at this for the long term. But at the same time, the Max & Co team attended our event in Aqaba. We just have hosted our yearly team get together. And we were almost 70 people in our Cloud 7 in Aqaba, which was incredible. But it was, having them there and having them so committed to this partnership to come, it really proves that it's not just an activity. ERA, EERA, that is, the ladies who developed that jewelry brand, today work with some of the biggest Italian brands and get invited to a lot of the launches. They developed a line of like a capsule collection for Dartentura, the house hotel. And starting price was €4,000 for a piece of jewelry. And they did really well. We did really well, but it was so well perceived because it was the interpretation of forms and shapes, and taking Dartentura, the house hotel, in that way to the Italian audience is very different than just coming with some advertisement and all of that kind of stuff. And then the latest partnership we signed is actually we signed a partnership in India. And we now have Kerten representation on the ground in India. We have been we've hired a local team, and we're really taking that market very serious. That we've gone into new markets in different times, etc. But I didn't really expect the ball to start rolling so fast over there. So and that's another, again, level of partnerships. And you're right. We've always said this from the beginning, that it was so important to us to create long-term relationships and not just these kind of fast things that go and come.
And your sustainability initiative, United Building a Better Universe, was that something you developed in-house, or was it something that you're partnering with?
We developed that in-house. And I have to say, it was one of the hardest projects, and still is one of the hardest projects, because with the whole ESG, the social part was part of our DNA since the onset. And if that was supporting the students for the hotel school and for the Sustainable Hospitality Awards, or Sustainable Hospitality Challenge, training people, having the remote ships, having local people within our teams. All of this was second nature to us. It was just, we didn't have a business plan for that. Even when you look at diversity, if you look at, we probably have 60% women in the team today, not by business plan. If we look, we have 23-year-olds running development for entire countries. Again, that was always part. But when you then go to the sustainability piece, for Dartantura and Halula, that was brilliant, right? We didn't have limited electricity, a total repurpose of the old town. But it's the same that we're doing in Morocco with Dersa and Tetouan. It's a former hotel that is going to be totally renovated and refurbished to be repositioned as a hotel. Cloud 7 Rome used to be a hotel. The owners of the property, actually, his dad used to have his office there. So he bought it back. He wants to have it for his kids. There's so much story to that. But then the idea was always that when it comes to the sustainability piece, that we drive it from the teams and that we really look first at how we can support the teams and how we can support the sustainability kind of promise within that core. Because once the team does it in their lives and once they believe in it, it's so much easier to implement. And I have to say, that's
Indeed.
much harder than I ever expected. And so we're working on this.
It's a responsibility, absolutely. And of course, a lot of it's been, there's a carrot and there's a stick, and a lot of finance now and government legislation on the sustainability is the stick. And I think both have a place to play. It's from the hearts of
Agreed.
hoteliers who realize they need to do the right thing. But if you get hit by a stick once in a while, as long as it doesn't hurt too much, that's also a good thing too. Because one of the problems with sustainability is people don't necessarily want to spend all their money on it or
That's
get
true.
confused as to what the next step is. And, a bit of pulling and a bit of pushing, both work.
Very true.
Let's get back lastly in the last couple of minutes, back to geography. Saudi Arabia, the Vision 2030 program was so huge. It's inevitably been scaled back a bit in certain projects. The dreaming was a little bit too much of a dream, but it's a huge responsibility developing a new market in a sense. How do you see Curtin's role in that? I mean, how do you look at it? You say, oh, we're going to do small projects that don't have too much weight on the land. We're going to encourage locals. I mean, the plan has for a lot of them, for staff to be Saudi. What responsibilities do you feel in Saudi, and what's the game plan in 5 years for Curtin there?
So today we already have 23 projects signed there. So we went for Jeddah, Riyadh,
My
but we
goodness.
have Yambu, Abha, Baha, we have Alula, obviously, and so there is Alasa. I'm forgetting one, but and there's multi projects on there, and there's a couple that we haven't even announced yet. But I think what has been our play from the beginning in Saudi has been private sector in relation with government. We never just went to government and said, give us 20,000, 40,000 keys and we sit and wait. We've really worked hard with government institutions to see what was their vision, what did they want to do in certain destinations and locations, what was the appetite of the private sector, and how could we combine that, driving kind of lifestyle. And that's also why the downsizing, and it's not even just downsizing. I think it's just the timeline has prolonged significantly, which I think for many things is for the good, because you concentrate on a couple of really key plaster projects, you attract more audience, and then you scale out from there. For us, it's a great opportunity because even training more of the local Saudi teams. Our project is still performing, progressing, grounds are broken, etc. So when you look at what's going on the ground, yes, a bit of the fat has been cut off, but the actual projects that matter, and this has been important to us, is we want to develop projects that matter in locations where they need it. When I look at our project, for example, in Abha, right, His Royal Highness has really been so focused on, it's close to the university. We create access to the community. The community comes in. The whole thing becomes holistic when you start doing it, because you have the expo coming up, you have the World Championship of Football coming up. You have so many other kind of leisure experiences coming up. You can see snow, sun, desert, and I think people really underestimate how much green you can even find in the summer. So, I think it's just at the beginning of the potential of the country. And what's important to us is that, our case scales it the same way. Vision 2030, when you look at the vision and you look at our vision and what we stand for as a company, are so aligned. So, we haven't scaled down, slowed down. I think, we're exactly on track where we always thought this would go. And I think this is also where, we're known to have really cared for the capital that was invested or is invested, both by private sector and government. That I think, we've really proven to be a solid business partner to people, which allows us now to, scale even
Yeah.
further.
I mean, I feel Saudi Arabia has a golden opportunity to do this right. Not only does it have a lot of land, it has a lot of capital, a lot of interest, a lot of future guests, a lot of guests coming in now. And I look forward very much to, I've been to Riyadh once, but I look very much forward to getting out into the huge amount of countryside. I mean, most of my listeners and readers know my obsession with birding. There's lots of good
Birds.
birds in Saudi Arabia. I need to get to see them. So, Marloes Knippenberg, CEO, Kerten Hospitality, thank you so much for your time. It's been a
Thank
fantastic
you.
chat. I really appreciate that. Thank you for listeners again, as always. More news on CoStar News Hotels on the website as always, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you so much. Thank you, Marloes.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Luke Haynes, People Newsletter Editor, CoStar News, and the host of Top Credentials, a monthly podcast exploring the colourful careers of those working at the top of UK commercial real estate. In the episodes, we discover the valuable lessons influencing the daily decision-making of property sector leaders, and hear about the aspects of their job that make it a little easier to get out of bed each morning. We'll also ask for their views on the latest news and policies shaping our constantly evolving industry, and even get them to share a famous quote or song title they think defines their career or the profession. Listen on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This episode of The Upgrade was recorded by Patrick Skillicorn on March 17th, 2026. It was edited by Sean McCracken. Visit costar.com/hotelnews for all of our coverage and look for more of our podcasts on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or your platform of choice.